In this video, I'll share a compelling story about a heartfelt bond between Shaquille O'Neal and his loyal German shepherd, Zeus. You'll see how a day at a local fair turned into an unexpected confrontation with a ruthless biker, and how Shaq's calm yet firm response highlighted the power of compassion and resilience. Stay tuned for a story of courage, loyalty, and standing up against cruelty. A ruthless biker, looking for a laugh, kicked a dog without a second thought. What he didn't realize was that the dog's owner was none other than Big Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal, affectionately known as Shaq, wasn't the kind of man who flaunted his off-court achievements. Sure, everyone remembered his glory days with the Los Angeles Lakers, towering on the hardwood and dominating the paint. But away from the spotlight, few were aware of his quieter passions. One of them was his unwavering love for Zeus, a gentle German shepherd he had rescued from a local shelter. Their bond was inseparable. On a warm Sunday morning, Shaq decided to take Zeus to a small-town fair on the outskirts of the city. The fair buzzed with life. Stalls selling homemade crafts, kids laughing as they played ring toss, and the sweet aroma of fresh kettle corn drifting through the air. Families wandered from booth to booth, soaking in the perfect sunny day. Dressed in jeans and a loose-fitting hoodie, Shaq blended in surprisingly well despite his towering presence. He simply wanted to enjoy the relaxed atmosphere, give Zeus some exercise, and maybe sip on some fresh lemonade. As they strolled past a booth serving the refreshing drink, Zeus wagged his tail happily, sniffing at the grass. Shaq paused to chat with a shy child who admired the dog, his deep laugh putting the boy at ease. Then, out of nowhere, a shift in the crowd's energy caught Shaq's attention. Whispers rippled through the fair as heads turned toward a nearby cluster of motorcycles, lined up like gleaming chrome beasts. A half-dozen bikers had arrived, each clad in leather vests and radiating an air of arrogance. Shaq had met plenty of kind-hearted riders before, but something about this group felt off. Their loud voices and dismissive gestures toward nearby families hinted at a more hostile edge. Fairgoers instinctively gave them a wide berth. Zeus, ever curious, flicked an ear toward the commotion but stayed obediently by Shaq's side. Sensing trouble, Shaq gently led Zeus away, aiming to avoid any unnecessary conflict. They were heading toward a pet supply stall when a chilling shout pierced the air. "Get out of my way, mutt!" The words were followed by a yelp. Zeus's yelp. Time seemed to slow as Shaq turned to see one of the bikers, a tall man with a jagged scar running down his cheek, pulling his foot back after delivering a vicious kick to Zeus. The German shepherd tumbled sideways, whimpering in pain. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Parents pulled their children close, and stall owners froze, unsure how to react. The biker stood there, laughing harshly, clearly entertained by the distress he had caused. Shaq's heart pounded as he rushed to Zeus, who was struggling to stand. The dog's confused brown eyes searched his owner's face, and Shaq gently ran his hands over him, checking for injuries. A storm of anger and concern boiled inside him, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Hey," Shaq said, his deep voice steady but loaded with intensity as he looked up at the biker. "What's your problem?" The biker sneered, his smirk dripping with disdain. "Problem? None at all," he drawled, gesturing lazily. "Maybe keep your mutt on a tighter leash next time." His friends erupted in laughter, their mocking tones adding fuel to the fire. Shaq stood slowly, his imposing figure casting a long shadow over the sneering man. The air around them grew heavy with tension, the fair's cheerful energy replaced by silent anticipation. Shaq towered over the man, dwarfing him by a solid foot. His deep voice trembled with controlled fury. "He wasn't bothering you. You had no right." The biker, unfazed, spat on the ground. "I do what I want. Dogs shouldn't get in my way." A murmur rippled through the crowd as someone finally recognized Shaq. "Oh my gosh, that's Shaquille O'Neal," they whispered, loud enough for others to hear. Realization spread quickly, and the onlookers began to edge closer, sensing the tension. The biker, either oblivious or indifferent, remained defiant. Shaq, his gaze locked firmly on the man, spoke again, his voice calm but resonant. "That dog is family to me." For a fleeting moment, uncertainty flickered across the biker's face, as if he could feel the crowd's growing disapproval. Still, he shrugged it off and squared his shoulders, his bravado undeterred. "Family or not, keep it away from me," he snapped, his posture clearly inviting confrontation. Shaq felt a surge of adrenaline, his years on the court flashing in his mind. He had learned to channel his strength and resolve, to rise above using force unnecessarily. But the primal need to protect Zeus roared inside him. "Apologize," Shaq said, his voice low and steady, a command that seemed to echo in the tense air. The biker scoffed, glancing at his friends for backup. Their snickers bolstered his confidence. "Apologize?" He sneered. "For what? Kicking a worthless dog?" The crowd gasped in unison. Zeus let out a shaky bark, still uneasy but leaning against Shaq's leg for reassurance. Before Shaq could respond, a fair security guard appeared. Short and visibly nervous, he clutched a radio in one hand as his eyes darted between the towering Shaq and the defiant biker. "Sir, is everything all right here?" he asked, his voice betraying his unease. The biker turned his ire toward the guard, stepping closer in a show of intimidation. "You want to make something of it, little man?" But the guard stood his ground, his voice firm despite the tension. "We don't allow violence here. You'll have to leave." The biker's glare darkened, but the crowd, now fully aware of who they were backing, began to murmur louder. Shaq straightened to his full height, his imposing presence silently supporting the guard. The biker opened his mouth to retort, but two of his friends stepped forward, their stances aggressive and ready for trouble. The tension in the air became almost unbearable. A woman in the crowd discreetly dialed the local police, her voice hushed but urgent as she described the escalating situation. Shaq let out a slow, measured exhale, his years of experience handling pressure kicking in. He positioned himself between the bikers and the nervous security guard, his towering presence exuding calm authority. Though outnumbered, Shaq's sheer size and reputation gave him an undeniable edge. "You heard him," Shaq said evenly, his voice steady and firm. "This isn't the place for fights. Leave." The biker leader's lip curled in defiance, but his bravado wavered. He glanced around, finally noticing how the crowd had turned against him. Parents glared, shielding their children. Stall owners stood with crossed arms. And then it hit him, the dawning realization of who he had just provoked. The man's gaze flickered up at Shaq, and recognition settled in. His posture stiffened, as panic momentarily flashed across his face. He had kicked Shaquille O'Neal's dog. Trying to save face, the biker spat out a lame, "This place is lame anyway," before barking orders to his crew. Revving his motorcycle, he avoided Shaq's eyes as the others quickly followed suit. The roar of their engines echoed through the fairgrounds, masking any embarrassment as they sped off, leaving behind a swirl of dust and disdainful stares. As the dust settled, the security guard let out a relieved breath. "Thanks, Mr. O'Neal," he muttered, his gratitude evident. A smattering of applause broke out among the crowd. Some people cheered, others voiced their relief. One child, wide-eyed with admiration, approached Shaq hesitantly. "You protected your dog like a superhero," the boy exclaimed. Shaq chuckled softly, reaching down to ruffle the kid's hair. "You gotta look out for family," he said, his warm smile easing the tension that still hung in the air. Zeus, though still visibly shaken, wagged his tail faintly as he leaned into Shaq's reassuring touch. Shaq knelt down beside him, murmuring softly, "You're okay, buddy. I've got you." The fair gradually returned to its lively rhythm, the unsettling encounter fading into the background as a reminder of how strength, both physical and moral, could turn the tide. Shaq knelt beside Zeus, carefully checking him over. Apart from a bruise and some trembling nerves, the German Shepherd seemed physically unharmed. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, identifying herself as a veterinarian. "Mind if I take a quick look?" she offered. Shaq nodded, stepping aside as the vet gently examined Zeus, feeling around his legs and ribs. After a thorough check, she straightened and gave a reassuring smile. "No broken bones. He's a lucky boy," she said softly. Relief washed over Shaq as he cradled Zeus's chin in his massive hand. "We appreciate that," he told the vet earnestly. Then, addressing the onlookers, he added, "And thanks to everyone for your concern." As the fair resumed its lively hum, the crowd slowly dispersed, though the earlier confrontation left the atmosphere subdued. Some fairgoers approached Shaq, offering praise for his calm handling of the situation. Shaq, ever humble, simply replied, "I did what anyone would." Yet inside, he grappled with a mix of relief and simmering anger. The thought of what could have happened, to Zeus, to himself, or even to the crowd, lingered heavily in his mind. Before he could leave, the fair's organizer rushed over, her face flushed with concern. "Mr. O'Neal, I'm so sorry for what happened," she said, her words tumbling out. "We've never had trouble like that before. I promise we'll increase security." Shaq nodded, his calm demeanor reassuring. "I trust you'll take care of it. People deserve to feel safe here." With Zeus pressed closely to his side, Shaq guided him toward the parking lot. The sun was beginning to set, streaking the sky with hues of purple and orange. The soft glow seemed to cast a sense of calm over the day's events. As they walked, Shaq murmured gently, "It's okay, boy. We're safe now." Zeus responded by leaning into Shaq's leg, as though understanding every word. Their bond, already strong, felt unshakable in that moment. Shaq carefully lifted Zeus into the back of his SUV, reaching into the glove compartment for a treat. Handing it to the still-shaken dog, he gently patted his side. "You're strong, buddy," Shaq said softly. "Stronger than that fool who tried to hurt you." Sliding into the driver's seat, Shaq paused, hands resting on the wheel as the day's events played back in his mind. What had started as a simple outing turned into a confrontation he hadn't anticipated. The biker's smirk and the sound of Zeus's yelp gnawed at him, stirring both anger and sadness. He gripped the wheel tightly, then exhaled slowly. For a moment, he considered calling the police, but figured the crowd's statements to fair security would be sufficient. If needed, he'd cooperate. The engine purred to life, and Shaq made a quiet decision. A peaceful drive home with Zeus was what they both needed. On the way, he stopped at a friend's house, someone with a sprawling backyard where Zeus could run and shake off the day's stress. The shepherd deserved it, and watching him play brought Shaq a sense of calm. Later that night, Shaq sat on his couch scrolling through his phone. Social media had exploded with videos of the incident, capturing everything from the confrontation to the biker's hasty retreat. Comments poured in, praising Shaq's composed response and condemning the biker's cruelty. Despite the viral attention, Shaq felt no satisfaction. He didn't need the spotlight for doing what he knew was right. All he hoped was that the incident might deter others from senseless acts of violence toward animals or anyone else. In the days that followed, local news outlets reported more about the biker gang, identified by their distinctive patches. They had been linked to multiple disturbances in the area, sparking a city council debate about implementing stricter measures to prevent violence at public gatherings. What began as a small, unpleasant incident might ultimately lead to broader change, ensuring safer spaces for families and pets to enjoy fairs and festivals. As for Shaq and Zeus, life returned to normal. Their bond grew even stronger, a silent testament to what they had endured together. On their next outing, Zeus trotted confidently by Shaq's side, tail wagging and eyes bright, proof that with love and protection, resilience could conquer cruelty. Life gradually returned to normal. Zeus's bruise healed quickly, and any lingering anxiety melted away with Shaq's gentle care and attention. The dog's resilience mirrored Shaq's steady, protective presence. Shaq continued his routine, workouts, public appearances, and philanthropic efforts, but from that day forward, he remained more vigilant whenever he took Zeus out. He understood not everyone valued animals as deeply as he did. Still, he refused to let fear overshadow the simple joys of life, like a stroll through the park or a trip to a local event with his loyal companion. As for the ruthless biker, his cruelty spectacularly backfired. Identified on the viral videos that swept social media, he faced relentless public backlash. Wherever he went, the weight of his actions followed him, a stark reminder that cruelty has consequences. Meanwhile, Shaq and Zeus emerged from the ordeal stronger than ever. Their bond deepened, a silent testament to the trust and love they shared. They had faced a threat together and stood tall, showing the world that compassion and loyalty always triumph over cruelty. In the end, what could have been a dark memory became a story of resilience and hope. A reminder that standing up for what's right makes the world a better place, one small act at a time.